Good Monday, everybody. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. We have two systems that we're watching. We've been watching Tropical Storm Marco. It was a hurricane yesterday. It quickly weakened due to wind shear, and you can't even see it on this water vapor image, but the center is right in there where I circled, with most of the thunderstorms off to the northeast getting blown away here by the wind shear. On the other hand, we have Laura down here, which looks much better organized compared to Marco, and it is south of Cuba in the Caribbean Sea, and it is forecast to become a powerful hurricane, taking aim at the Texas or Louisiana Gulf Coast by Wednesday. Could be a very dangerous storm. So we've got a lot to cover. Let's get to it first with Marco. Now here's the latest as of 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central on Tropical Storm Marco. It was at 28.5 north, 88.5 west, winds of 50, and it's moving north-northwest at 8, and you can see the forecast brings it ashore in Louisiana later today, and then it should turn into a depression and dissipate and move inland there over the North Gulf Coast. However, you can see most of the tropical storm winds are off to the northeast by about 50 miles. We do have tropical storm warnings in effect from Morgan City to the Mississippi-Alabama border, including Lake Pontchartrain and New Orleans, but again, as the Hurricane Center notes, not many areas will see sustained tropical storm force winds, and that's very good news. Nevertheless, we'll have water rises and that onshore flow around the edge of Marco. Here's the visible satellite imagery, and I have very good news to report. You can see there the center of circulation. This is almost an exposed weakening vortex there, and that's the actual center of the tropical storm. And that's what's going to make landfall in the areas of, say, Buras, Louisiana, maybe Grand Isle, Louisiana. However, over here to the northeast near the Panhandle and maybe towards Gulf Shores, Alabama, you guys are getting some of the heaviest thunderstorm activity. And it's really not that heavy. There's some rainfall on the Florida Panhandle, Fort Walton Beach, Destin. It's going to be kind of a rainy afternoon, so I wouldn't take the dog on the beach or anything. I'd stay in and watch TV because it's going to be kind of a wet day along the Gulf Coast. And we will have water rises, so if you're in low-lying areas, listen to local officials as Marco moves on in. But again, this looks very, very weak as it moves on towards the west-northwest. You can almost see the low-level flow here in this direction, but the upper-level shear blowing the storms in that direction, just very unfavorable for development. So we won't have to deal with Marco much longer. We are going to have to deal with Laura. Okay, now as of 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Laura was at 21.2 north, 80.6 west, winds of 60. It had been 65. It's been fluctuating, organizing, kind of sputtering. Remember, it's been interacting with the Dominican and Haiti and Jamaica and Cuba. However, it's now south of Cuba, moving west-northwest at 20, which is a little slower than yesterday. And it is forecast to cross western Cuba tonight, and by tomorrow night be a hurricane in the central Gulf, and then possibly rapidly strengthen into a Category 2, maybe even a Category 3 major hurricane before landfall. And again, it could be in Texas, it could be in Louisiana. Right now it's pretty uncertain, but if you're in areas like New Iberia, Cameron, Sabine Pass, Port Arthur, Houston, you guys want to be carefully overlooking your hurricane plans right now in case local officials order evacuations along the coastlines. This could be a serious hurricane. There's the visible as the sun comes up. You can see it is organizing. The Cayman Islands right in here, and the Cuban coastline right in there, and you can see Laura blowing up convection. Very, very warm waters. I'll show you that in a second. Nevertheless, it has been dealing with some northerly shear, but that seems to be abating a little bit. You can see a pretty good band here moving over the Florida Straits. So if you're in the Keys, get ready for tropical storm conditions. And we do have a tropical storm warning from Craig Key to Key West, including the dry Tortugas, as well as the Cayman Islands and the coastline of Cuba, including the Isle of Youth, because this whole region here is going to be impacted by tropical storm force winds as Laura moves on up. Here's a microwave satellite imagery, and you can kind of see the center trying to consolidate there south of Cuba. It's sucked in a little bit dry air there, and it has been dealing with some northerly wind shear. You can see that even better on this shear chart. You can tell Marco obviously just getting shredded right here on the North Gulf Coast, and then the shear kind of falls like that, and so there's been a little bit of northerly wind shear over the top of Laura. However, as Laura moves on off towards the west, it should get under a much better environment, a great environment for intensification, and so that track towards the west-northwest straight through the central Gulf should allow for intensification. And you can see some of the computer models here are still in Texas. So if you live in the upper Texas coastline, don't think you're off the hook by any means. We'll see the windshield wiper effect, as we call it, where the models go back and forth and back and forth. Nevertheless, Texas and Louisiana, you guys seem to be most in the line of attack right now from Laura. There's the radar imagery out of the Cayman Islands, some good heavy rainfall, and that seems to be the organizing trend right now south of Cuba, north of the Caymans, and so we're going to watch gradual strengthening today, and then a more intense strengthening come Tuesday and Wednesday as the system takes aim at the Gulf Coast. You can see it's got no problem as far as sea surface temperatures. Very hot water here south of Cuba, very hot water in the Gulf of Mexico, and it is late August, so all systems are go with a good upper-level environment, moist air, and a lot of hot water for Laura to intensify. So the key messages this morning and into the afternoon with Laura: number one, tropical storm conditions expected across much of Cuba today. Heavy rainfall, Cuba, Jamaica. This could cause life-threatening mudslides and flash and urban flooding. And of course, I mentioned the tropical storm conditions expected in the dry Tortugas and the middle and lower Florida Keys later today. Number two, there is an increasing risk of dangerous storm surge, wind, and rainfall along the upper Texas coast through the north-central Gulf Coast beginning Wednesday. And interest in these areas should monitor the progress of Laura and have your hurricane plan in place, as storm surge and hurricane watches are likely later today. Okay? So again, the main impacts of Marco are going to pale in comparison to what Laura is going to bring to the Gulf Coast by Wednesday and Thursday. So right now we're going to deal with the impacts here in the Florida Panhandle. Marco's going to come on in, and then all the focus is going to turn here to Laura as she moves towards the west-northwest through the central Gulf of Mexico on an eventual track towards either Louisiana or Texas as what is expected to be at least a Category 2, if not stronger. So a very powerful hurricane landfall is likely by Thursday along the upper Gulf Coast. So stay tuned. I'll have frequent updates as Laura moves into the Gulf of Mexico over the next 24 hours.